Welcome to a very special video. In case you haven't heard, I am now officially a published author. And as part of that, I have this to open up. I have never done an unboxing video before. I don't know why people are interested in stuff like this. I don't get it. I don't watch them. Never made them. Which is why this is going to be so much more than just an unboxing video. Should probably be cutting away from myself. I'm not doing this very intelligently. I am super excited. Should be like 20-something books in here. Nothing properly describes the feeling of holding the very first copy of your very first book. Not going to bother with the rest of them. So, yes, The Hellfire Brats by myself, E.M. Allen, a.k.a. Mediocrity 4, a.k.a. Evan Michael Allen. E.M. Allen is basically my real name. And, nothing extra. It's 203 pages. It is a pulp-inspired, action-packed urban fantasy. Kind of in the vein of Dresden Files, but not inspired by Dresden Files. I actually just last week read the very first Dresden File book, and by read, I mean I listened to the audiobook because I cashed in a free trial on Audible as part of my Amazon Prime account, and finally gave it a listen. Thought, if I'm going to do urban fantasy, I should probably have some experience with the granddaddy of modern fantasy. And it was good. I really liked that first Dresden File book. I'm planning on doing one Dresden File book a month for the next year, because that's how many there are. So, anyway. Yep, 202 pages, something like 34 chapters, plus a prologue, which isn't necessarily a prologue. It's more like a chapter 0, which I guess is what a prologue is. Dedicated to my older sister, Cindy, for supporting my creative drive my entire life. She was my first fan. One of these copies that I have is going to her and her husband. And, so yeah, I've always been a writer. Most of you who are familiar with my channel already know that. Around the same time I started on YouTube, I also started on fanfiction. I did RWBY fanfiction. And yeah, I did the RWBY on fanfiction series for about 3 years, while I worked up the nerve to write my first novel, which is not The Hellfire Brats. I know I said that this is my first published work. It was actually a relatively new idea in my mind. There is another book that is yet to be written that will be one big fantasy book, like not a medieval fantasy, much older than medieval, much older than Greco-Roman. I'm going kind of Paleolithic with what I'm going to consider my magnum opus. This is a little thicker than I thought it would be, but it's not super long, and the chapters are very short. There's 34 chapters and 202 pages. You can do the math on that. So you can easily knock this out in a couple days. Even when I was doing my proofread edits, I was able to knock it out in like 3 days. Probably about a total of 16 hours to read through it. It is pulp inspired, but I wouldn't consider it true pulp. But I'll get to that here in a minute when I talk about my inspiration. The initial idea was very different for this book. It was originally a response to how much I disliked the anime Devilman Crybaby, which I have gone on record both on Twitter, Discord, and I believe I've even talked about it on stream before, talking about why I detested that particular anime. I'm not gonna say the line. I just opened up to a random page. It's page 138. It starts with a JoJo reference. Just, kind of putting a few of my inspirations out on the table here. It really shaped into something quite different. The original title for this was just going to be Night Watch. The series is The Agents of Night Watch. And, it was originally Night Watch, but then as I took more and more inspiration from my chief inspiration, which I'll get to here in a minute because someone asked a question about it, Night Watch just didn't really fit the scope of what the series is going to be. So the Agents of Night Watch is much more apt. There was also another series title that I was shopping around in my brain, but saying what it is will be a spoiler for book 3. The book 3 is where that title would make a lot more sense. In fact, it's going to be a title for one of the chapters when I get to book 3. Which I've actually already started on the rough draft on. I'm actually in the middle of my second draft for book 2, which will be called The Nephilim Strain. And the book 3 title for book 3, kind of undecided, but right now, as I'm writing it, it's called The Grand Selection. That's not going to really mean anything to you. Even after you read this and read book 2, you probably won't know what the Grand Selection is going to entail. But once you read this, you'll kind of get hyped more for the Nephilim Strain, because it is much more alluded to in this. So, Rick's Arts, a longtime fan of the channel and a frequent commenter on both here on the YouTube channel and on my Twitter, asked about the book, asking for my inspirations. Let's get the big one out of the way. The Shadow. Particularly, the very first of the 328 pulp novel adventures featuring the Shadow, titled The Living Shadow. So, there's a character in my book named Sir Nightwatch. He's very clearly riffing on the Shadow. Riffing might not be the best word. He is the Shadow in all but name. He has very similar methods, including the use of agents, which I think is very fascinating. The Shadow is one of the progenitors of modern storytelling. He is a progenitor and main inspiration for Batman, as well as countless other imitators. But none of those imitators have even tried to capture what really drew me in to the Shadow, and this book especially. Despite bearing his name in big green letters, the Shadow only appears, I think, like 5 times in this book. He appears at the very beginning, where he rescues and recruits the real hero of this book, and the hero of many of the Shadow's adventures, Harry Vincent, who is my favorite character in the entire Shadow Pantheon. He is absurdly well developed in this book, and every time he appears in all the Shadow pulps that I've read, which I've read about 10 at this point, 10 out of 328, it's better than what I do with most series, and I plan on reading more, obviously. Every time Harry Vincent shows up, I just get so excited. The character Dodger in the Hellfire Brats is basically Harry Vincent. Although one of the main POV characters in the Hellfire Brides, Oliver Turner, is also kind of Harry Vincent. At least as far as the first chapter. The first chapter of The Living Shadow, called Out of the Mist, is very similar to I believe it's chapter 2? Yes, chapter 2 is called Bartleby of the Storm. So that is the main inspiration. The Shadow is, at least in the pulps, isn't really magical. Like, in the radio drama, which I'm actually much more familiar with, there were like 400 radio episodes, and of those 400, I probably listened to about 150, 170. A much higher percentage than Shadow pulps that I've read. In the radio show, he can cloud men's minds. You know, he's a master of the human mind. He's a hypnotist who can render himself invisible to the human eye. Other than that, he's much more of a grounded vigilante. You know, kind of not too dissimilar from like the Punisher or Mr. A, who were both inspired by him. But what sets him apart, and another thing that I took inspiration for when writing these books, is he doesn't just drop a dirtbag. He makes each and every dirtbag's demise somewhat poetic. And that is a feel that I want to capture with the dispensary of the villains throughout this series. So that is the biggest inspiration. Although, like, again, it's a little thicker than your average pulp novel. This, it's got a much smaller print format, and it is just as, I should say, thin. About, like, how many pages is this? Yeah, this is 172 pages. It's still, even with its smaller frame, it's still a good 20 to 30 pages shorter than my book. And for a little more, another pulp-inspired book, The Artificer by my friend Raymond McNeil, it clocks in around a couple blank pages, 172 pages, same. And then The Long Moonlight by Razorfist, which is also very good. This is probably the most pulpy. This is more pulpy than most Shadow pulps that I've read. That is how ingrained in the pulp tradition Razorfist is, and he's very, very good at emulating that style. It clocks in at 115 pages, and that's with illustrations too. I thought about doing illustrations for my book, but that would have been very costly and very time consuming, and that just wasn't a step I was willing to take. If this sells absurdly well, and by absurdly well I mean over like 2,000, 3,000 copies, that'd be absurd for me. I'm planning on selling a few dozen of these things throughout the next year. That's my expectations. First time author, self-publishing, the average is like the high average is like 250, and that's after it being skewed by people like Brandon Sanderson and J.K. Rowling, who occasionally self-publish their novels and skew all the numbers, all the averages upwards. With that said, it is significantly shorter. It's significantly longer than your average pulp, but it's significantly shorter than your average modern fantasy. I don't have a physical copy of Dresden Files, but I'd wager that this is about 15 to 20 pages shorter than most Dresden File books. And it's it's probably like less than a third of the length of a Brandon Sanderson book, which I also don't have any physical copies of. I've never actually gotten around to reading Brandon Sanderson. He's on my list, though. He's on my list. He's a very important figure in modern fantasy, and I feel like he's kind of homework for me at this point. Same with Dresden Files, but Dresden Files I'm already kind of hooked and looking forward to next month when I can read the second book. I think it's called Full Moon. So then, now that I have the inspirations out of the way, I actually talked about this book before on stream back in November of 2019. Over a year after I came up with the initial ideas, I wrote the first draft of this, and it is a completely different book. I wrote the first draft in November 2019, and then when the pandemic hit, I didn't touch it for like a year. And then in 2021, I started like rewriting and editing in earnest, and I was not feeling it. The thing I wasn't feeling was the framing device. When I first started writing this, I had just read for the very first time Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's going to become kind of an October tradition for me because it's very, very good. I love the way it uses its framing device. I'm big on framing devices. Like, if you have a really cool framing device, I'm already hooked. Well, Dracula's framing device is that it is a collection of letters and correspondence notes from the various characters. And that was kind of what this book was originally structured after. That's why there's so many chapters that are so short. Because I didn't really change the way that the chapters were laid out. I did shuffle some things around. For instance, it doesn't have a table of contents. I know the ebook version has a table of contents. There's an incident involving one of the characters being captured. It happens roughly around the halfway point in this book. It was originally what kicked off the third act. So I moved that way forward to help smooth out some of the transitions and split up some of the action scenes in this book. I did a massive, comprehensive, top to bottom rewrite around June of this year? June, July? I know I did the last leg of the rewrite when I was in Florida earlier this year, and I think I went to Florida around like the second week of July. Then after that, I started shopping around for publishers again. I had been previously rejected by Baen, who are one of the biggest publishers around. They were kind of the ideal, but then I was like, I don't want to wait another 6 to 9 months for another response from them, so I'm gonna shop around places that have a little quicker turnaround times. A couple of them never got back to me, but one of them did. It was called Olympia Publishers, they've been accused of being a vanity publisher. They offer hybrid contracts where you pay them money and then they handle all the stuff. So I was kind of using them. I never intended to publish through Olympia. I just was using them to test the waters to see if this is a story ready for prime time. It might not be. There's a couple aspects, looking back, like I could probably use the villain plot could maybe use a little more time in the oven. That I kind of know what criticisms to expect because I'm super critical of myself. I'm just not going to discuss them here because this is a video trying to get people hyped, get myself hyped for this. I just realized that I never discussed the other inspirations. You'll know them. You'll know them when you read. The Shadow is just the big one that kind of helped everything in this book and subsequent books fall into place. So Olympia got back to me and they approved it. They approved and they asked me to pay them. The contract was that I pay them $3,200. That was way above what I was even willing to pay. It's also way more expensive than any self-publisher out there. And when you self-publish, you have a lot more control over things like rights, sequels, distribution. So I shopped around for some self-publishers. There's some that are just absolutely annoying. Like, I asked a website or whatever, I can't remember what the website was, for descriptions of publishing packages. I've gotten bombarded since then with emails and phone calls and voicemails and text messages. Like, I didn't want to be called. I wanted just information that was on your website. I got it. Go away. So, anyway, I ended up settling for BookBaby. BookBaby is one of the more well-known, I think, self-publishers. They're one of the first ones that pop up. And they're also, fair warning, one of the most expensive. But look at that fucking cover. Urgh. I love this cover. I love it. The character portrayed on it is actually one of the titular Hellfire Brats and one of the main antagonists of this book, Sebastian Crane, who is a Demoran arsonist. Arsonist, you should all know what that is, and then Demoran, you're gonna have to read the book to find out. So part of their publishing package, and they're very adjustable. They ask you, like, what are you going to do yourself? What are you going to do through other people? What do you want us to do? They give you a quote. I got like 20-something books that jacked up the price a bit. I also have 300 posters coming in. They're coming in later today, but I'm going to be busy on a date, actually. So that kind of jacked up the price, and I ended up sending them not the final draft. So I had to pay an extra $200 to redo all the edits I had already done. So, my bad. That was a $200 mistake that I made. They did the book cover, they did the printing, they've been handling distribution. It's available for pre-order on Amazon as well as a couple other sites. Can find it most retailers now, and I'm really glad about that. It comes out November 18th. That is when the ebook and stuff will go live. That is when you will be able to expect this if you pre-order the print version. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what people think and really listening to criticism, because this is my first official published work. It is not my first foray into literature. It's not even my first non-fanfiction foray into literature. Those who have been with me the longest may remember me talking about a little mini story, like a 10-chapter novella called Roads, which no one read, but it was published on a website as part of a story competition. It got like 2 votes out of the several thousand that were, administered. And Roads is a book I would like to revisit. It's one that just I want to make work, but I've never been able to really find the thing that makes it all click together, which is why it's dormant. And I also had a series going on Fiction Press, which is the original idea version of fanfiction.net. But that story kind of got canceled because it was never meant to be in prose. It was always kind of intended to be a comic, and so it may never see the light of day. Maybe if I get rich and famous and partner up with a really good artist, that story will see the light of day, but until then, it's nowhere. Until then, it's just going to be Agents of Night Watch for the next 15, 20 years. I have a lot of books planned in this series, and I am willing to work my ass off. I'm willing to work an actual day job, even though I work overnight shift. But I'm willing to stick with this dead-end job if it means having the sustainable income that makes this possible. I am not looking to be rich and famous off this. I would love to. I would love it. This is what I want my life to be. And this is what I've always wanted my life to be. Which brings me to the second question, which is from Coop, a longtime friend of the channel, asking me, why you so gay? Why aren't you? This is not a good... My hair is not the right way for me to answer this question sarcastically. I look gay right now. And in the original intent of the term, meaning happy, I am very happy. I'm having a very, very good week this week. Yeah, the only other question I received on my post was from King Murder, great name by the way, asking if I am the same Mediocrity 4 who used to roast RWBY. Used to? I mean, I've been doing those Ice Queendom reviews. I mean, I'm done with Ice Queendom now. Maybe we'll do a podcast later. But yeah, I'll have some content for Volume 9 when it comes out. RWBY is another inspiration here, though much, much lighter. There's like 2 or 3 characters whose descriptions you might be like, oh, that kind of sounds like she looks like Weiss. Oh, that kind of sounds like Pyrrha a little bit, maybe. I have a lot of niche inspirations. The 2 main characters in this book, or 2 of the 3 main characters in this book, are Oliver and Dodger. It's Oliver Twist. So yeah, I'm gonna read the back of this book to kind of wrap up here. The Hellfire Brats. Oliver Turner always knew he lived in a world of magic, monsters, and mobsters, but it always seemed so far away. Then he met Sir Nightwatch. The shadowy figure saved his life and offered him a place within the secretive group of mages known as Nightwatch. Join him as he discovers the truth about his own potential, his heritage, and helps solve a case involving arsonists, assassins, monsters, and the fiendish gang known only as the Hellfire Brats. I like to think I'm good at summaries. I'm not good at summarizing my own books because I feel like a lot of book descriptions don't do the complexity of their books justice. I may have overdone it a little bit on the descriptions. I may have said a little too much. Not really gotten to why you should read this in those descriptions, but first time author, first time officially published. Man, have I said how good it feels to hold my own fucking book in my hand? So good. So yeah, that's it. Hellfire Brats. Pre-order it now. Comes out November 18th, and then let me know what you think about it. Are you excited? Because I know I am. I'm Mediocrity 4. Actually, I am E.M. Allen. Thanks for watching.